we're going to give the player the ability to fight back. It's a first-person shooter, so let's have some shooting going on. Going to make a function called shoot for the player, and we will do shooting using raycasts. I'll set up a raycast hit. And I will fire a ray from the middle of the screen going out into the level. So that line will go this way. So we'll say physics dot raycast, and then we will need a reference to the main camera. And in order for me to do that, I will set up a public variable that can be set to point to the main camera. And this is just in case we end up having multiple cameras for some reason. And I'll say camera and main camera. Okay, so now we have a reference to that camera. We can go ahead and fire the ray. So raycast camera main, and then we'll get the transform, then we'll get the position. So this is where we're going to start our ray from. And we will now give the raycast a direction, which will simply be forward, and a place to store the result. And that's going to be in our hit variable that we just made. Once we've fired out the ray, we are going to test as an initial, just to test that the code works in principle. We'll check what we hit. So we can say hit, and we'll get the tag of what we just fired at. So hit.transform.tag. And this line will simply put the tag of whatever object we've hit onto the console. So that gives us a base to test from, but before we can test, we need to call the function, otherwise it's pretty much useless. And we will say if input get button down, and whatever fire1 is mapped to, we will call shoot. In order for this to actually work, we're going to have to give Bart the tag. So let's give him a tag. Any of these will not, none of these will do. Let's go to add tag, and we're going to call this monster. We can refine these tags later when we have multiple enemies, but for now we'll keep it nice and simple. So Bart will be tagged as a monster because that's what he is. Before the raycasts will work, we need to add a collider to good old Bart. There's Bart there in his kind of T-pose. So if we go into capsule collider, and let's get this at a reasonable shape. That's not a reasonable shape. Go into edit and pick it up from here. We're just going to get it to cover the model. Grab it from down there and bring him up. And now let's bring the sides in slightly. It goes off to the side, that's okay. Let's change that back to 0. That gives us a basic place to start. Let's make it a bit more skinnier because Bart's been on a diet. Right, been on a diet of brains. So let's see if our collider works now. So there we go, hitting untagged. And now if we keep an eye on the console, I shoot at Bart. Okay, and there I got hit monster. So the raycast is working. We can do the next part. And the next part is going to be to check whether the raycast that we hit was a monster. So we'll put this into an if statement and we'll say monster. So we know that we've hit a monster. What we can do is grab the simple AI script and call a function that we're about to implement. So we'll say transform game object get component, and we'll get the simple AI script. And in the same vein that the player had hit function, the zombie, the monster, can have a hit function, and we'll have a variable that we're going to change depending on what gun we have. But for now, just to keep it nice and simple, we'll say gun damage, and we'll set that to 10. And a data type might be useful. We'll say done by the gun. And we'll provide that as a variable. So this error will still come up because we need to implement this function. So if we have a look at the animations available to us, we actually have two. There's a falling back and there's a falling forward. So let's use both, since both of those are available to us. If we modify the animator, and so let's grab those animations. So grab one for falling back, and we'll have one for falling forward. And we're going to initiate these from the any state, because essentially you can be shot at any point. It's a tough life being a zombie. If we go into our triggers, let's make one for, that's what I want. We will have a new trigger, and we will call this die forward, and we'll have one for die backward. And we're going to set our code up to choose one of these at random. So when you shoot Bart, he may fall forward, he may fall backward. So we're not necessarily respecting the laws of physics, but we're just trying to make a more interesting visual rather than having the exact same animation run every single time. We'll run one of two, which would be that much more interesting. Let's make this as a transition. So we'll go, that one should be the die backwards. And what I want to do is actually stay consistent. So I'm going to put the word trigger, since I put trigger on everything else. Okay, and now let's assign these. That one will be the backwards, and then this one will be the forwards. And die, essentially. And let's bring that in slightly. Let's bring that so slightly up there, and then okay, the preview looks okay. And something's gone wrong here. And there is errors. Okay, so Unity won't let me do this because I've got the error on my player. Let's just get rid of that compile error. And let's see what Unity complains about now. Nothing. Something new there. Okay. So that's fine. And what I want is, yes, I don't want the big transition. I just want this to be down here, over there, bring this over here. Okay, let's give that a bash. Yeah, okay. Go back into my simple AI script. We can now access those triggers, and what we will do is have these. We'll allow the variables to be set in the inspector. So we will make an array of strings. Strings may not be the most efficient way of storing these, but they are the clearest to code. We'll call these 4 triggers. And so the idea here is when Bart gets shot, he will choose a random trigger from this array for his death animation. And if we let's implement, in fact, what we need to do is implement the hit function. So we'll say public void hit and the damage value. And although at the moment the damage value is kind of superfluous, it's not needed because he's just going to die. And that's a mechanic I most likely will come back to, where the enemy has some form of health in the same way that the player has health. At the moment, 1 shot, 1 kill is the way it's going to be running. Although at some point in time, I will most likely come back to that. The main problem is there's no kind of hit animation, as in a non just getting damaged animation on Bart. But that's okay because we can find some and then re-trigger them, or reassign them, re-trigger them, reapply them back into Bart. But for now, let's keep things simple. So we'll say random 4. So we'll make a random number and random range, and we'll say from 0 to the length of the array. The length of the array we can get from going in length. So our random 4 will be here, will either be 0 or 1 because we've only got 2 triggers for the 4. So we'll say call this trigger name. And now we can access our 4 triggers array and using random 4 as the index. And then we grab the enemy animator and do set trigger. The name will be the trigger name that we just got from the array. So we'll say trigger name. And at this point, we're gonna want to do a couple of things regarding its AI. Waypoint scripts enabled should be false, so it doesn't carry on following us around, which would be weird because he's been shot. And then we also need to disable the nav mesh agent. So we say nav mesh agent, and is stopped, I believe, is a property. It is, and that one will be set to true. Then we will add a state. No, we won't add a state just for now. We're just going to keep things nice and simple. So at this point, what's the warning here? Random range, random.range. Okay, so random.range. Grab a random number between 0 and how many triggers we have. Get the trigger name based off that value. Set the animator to be that trigger name. Stop all AI is essentially what we're going for when we've been hit, and then we should re-enable this function call. And this right now is doing nothing. It's doing absolute nothing. It's just there as it's been set up so that in the future, if this is implemented or if this is attached to a different monster that has more health, or just has more stamina than what Bart does, just 1 bullet and he's gone. The setup is already there, so you don't really lose anything right now, but it doesn't make any difference to what Bart is doing. And I think that's everything we need to give this a go. So let's give this a go. Back into this. That's not good. That's just gooey stuff. But what I will do for a change is actually set my values. I've got die forward trigger, die backward trigger, and if I go into Bart and I open up the simplify script, okay, got 4 triggers, and let's add the trigger names. So the first one is going to be die forward trigger, and the next one is going to be die backward trigger. So what should happen is that he should choose one of these at random. Okay, let's give this a bash. So got a nice aim there. So there's Bart just kind of wandering, and I'm going to shoot him from far. Okay, so I did hit him. Oh yeah, no, he did do something. Let's try that one more time. So go up to Bart, and this time get it in my sides. What's happening is, yes. Okay, so there seems to be some kind of exit time associated with this, which is why it's not kind of falling down instantly. So let's fix that. Oh, did I do hazard? Ah, okay, I left this unchecked. And did I leave this one unchecked? I left this one unchecked as well, so we never stood a chance. Let's try that again. We'll try and get one for both forward and backwards. Yeah, let's grab my mouse so it goes properly. And this time, come on. Oh, hey. Bart goes down. Well, Bart went backwards. Let's try one where he goes forwards. There. Okay, so we've got both. We've got one of him going forward and we've got one of him going backwards. And that is a mechanic that is now working. So we've got, so let's see, let's just take stock of where we are. So at the moment, Bart can chase us and attack us. So we've got health and he's going to come for us. Roar, attack us. There he's attacking. Now, what we can also do is go boom. Down you go. I think that will do it. Oh, we're still getting damage. Okay. And let's think about why that is. So we should not be getting damaged when we run back over Bart and when we do attack. Okay, so this is the state that we want. So let's just make a different state for Bart. So we'll say Bart waiting, Bart dead. Okay. This time, when we do get shot, we will update the state to say state equals monster state dead. Okay, and now it should take us out of this attacking state. Get Bart one more time, and then we're going to see if we run into him whether he can still damage us, because that was the issue we just saw of us running over Bart and him being able to kind of still hurt us. So there we go, boom. Right, he's gone forward. Yeah, no, now he does nothing, and we don't lose any health. He's just there, lying face down. Ah, you are once so strong. Nice. Okay, I think that will do it for today. I am going to go back and add some comments to my code to keep everything as readable as possible. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Cheers.